Deborah, thank you very much. Very expansive programme of work going on, a lot of learnings coming out. Just before we open up an initial question, we talked about sort of the estate management, and we talked about sort of the existing estate and the new estate, but one of the key drivers is really, well, where are we actually finding the where are we finding the key savings in terms of energy? I know you spoke about adopting security regimes, etc., but in terms of energy management, for instance, where are you finding sort of the key iterations that are
the key savings really are from where we make the design decisions up front, that we put the right elements in place, and there will be some investor save in these scenarios. We may put some, some energy saving devices in, but we really want them to actually operationally pay back. So when we make those design decisions, and we've got some classic examples where this has gone wrong. Some of the schools have been classic examples of this, where they've been the most energy efficient buildings. They've won every award going. The designers have got trophies coming out of their cabinets. However, no one can turn the lights off because they didn't think about actually it's a janitor that runs the building, and no one explained to him how to use a BMS. And that, these sort of decisions are really critical. That's why you have the right people in making the design decisions. So if we're going to put very complicated energy efficient systems, we need to make sure we have the training in place to make sure the people that are going to be managing those sites actually can operate them. So it's about making those clever design decisions early on and challenging them.
Any questions from the floor? Table 5.
Deborah, Kirkham Ward, what's the contract value on Kirkham Ward?
Oh, I don't know, sorry.
and the UK government BIM strategy, we're looking to drive 20% value out of the construction process and 27% reduction in carbon. Are there any figures there for Kirkham Ward yet?
No, not yet. They're still working through that. There are some savings figures that are coming through. We haven't got the final position yet, but as soon as we do, we will publish those, and I know they're working on that at the moment. I can come back to you on the contract value.
With the government software engines program, do you see the way clients might engage design teams and contracting teams in a longer term relationship, as opposed to at the moment designers, sort of engaged until handover, really?
Yeah, well,
does it change?
Yeah, exactly. The government soft landing person who's on that design team, we see that very much being a person who's going to be responsible for operating that long term. So whether that's an internal or external person is kind of irrelevant. But the person that's involved in the design is the person that owns it also. So they've got some real interest in that, what comes out of it. So they're not just part of a project team that then walk away, because we're in the same scenario as we were before. You've probably got someone who's from FM and then they've just become a consultant and off they go and nothing's been, and you've lost that knowledge and that handover. So it's having the people that have the real sense of purpose about what the outcome is, and have got the ownership of that outcome. So it's about having the right person in the design team that owns the outcome.
Is that affecting the terms of engagement with designers and contractors?
No.
No.
No, because it's from the government's soft landing with it, it's a client-side role, and it's not a new role. It's a role that exists. So it's someone from the estates team. So it should. I don't see that it should.
How do you deal with reluctance from stakeholders to contribute at such an early stage?
Yeah.
A problem that we sometimes find is where at an early stage in a project where you really want the input from stakeholders, they're thinking, I've got my own work on current construction or current maintenance or management, and this project may never go ahead. I don't want to waste my time on something that may never go ahead, and I'm not going to commit to critical decisions at that stage. They may not be directly employed by the client, they may be other stakeholders. So how do you deal with that reluctance in getting the critical input that you're looking for?
It's an interesting one, because there is reluctance, and I think the reluctance is based on the lack of education, knowing what the benefits can bring by being involved. So I think there's an education piece that we need to do, definitely. But I think if we can demonstrate the benefits to them, so take them some examples, say, we walk you through this building and do one that you've done before, or test one, or whatever it is, and say, you can make those sort of decisions now by helping us. I think you've really got to demonstrate it to them. I think you really have to lay it out on the table, because not all the clients are going to have A, the time, or B, be particularly interested in the outcome. So I think you are going to need to push that a little, but I think you've got to demonstrate it to them really, what the benefits really are. I think once they see that and actually how it impacts their bottom line and the operational costs going forward, they take a bit more interest.
Question table 4.
Yes, I'm interested in computer-aided FM. I'm just wondering, what is the difference between that and, we'd say, the traditional systems like Maximo and others used?
Maximo is a CAFM system.
Is it?
Yeah.
So in actual fact, it's just really a system that uses the BIM data
Yes. Yeah,
to
so
give you a more
it's
sophisticated...
an asset management system. Maximo is one of the leading
Yes.
players in that. There are a number of others. We're trying to really engage with IBM and others, and FSI Concept, who are kind of the lead ones in the UK, to make sure that they really embrace how we take the COBE data into the CAFM systems. And that's the bit that they've got to work out. We haven't got the answers yet, but we're working on it. But yeah, the CAFM systems are those systems.
Yes. Do you think it will be available before I retire?
I hope so. Depends when you're retiring.
Okay. Yes, just to quickly apologise, we have a problem with the roving mics, but I've been assured that if you project your voice, it will be picked up online. Okay? So, just to thank you for your presentation. I think you hit all the sweet spots from my perspective, so thank you very much for that. My question is, just to get a bit of clarity around these data drops and the points you're dropping the data at. I understand that you've taken the RIBA plan of work,
Yeah.
which has traditionally got 12 stages, and you've identified it as 7 points?
Yeah,
You have?
yeah, I think so. 7, yeah.
7 points. So it looks like we've got to do something similar here. We've got
Yeah.
to take our own construction process cycle, and
Yeah.
we've got to decide at what points we're dropping the data.
And they developed the plain English questions. I don't know what I call them English anymore. The plain language questions, particularly as we know.
Did
The
that
plain
involve-
language questions help develop what information goes into that data drop.
But did that involve the OICS, ICE,
Yes,
CIOB,
Yes.
all the stakeholder institutes in the UK
Yes.
agreeing to that?
yes,
Is
they're
that
all
right?
being in agreement to that.
Including
I don't
the-
know if that's been published yet, that
Right.
plan of works, but it's certainly in its final
So that's
stage.
obviously a body of work that has to be done here
Yes.
in Ireland, because it's different. It's a different process here than in Ireland. So obviously we have to do something like that here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just a
Question down the back.
Yeah, it was somewhat related to the COBE to CAFM, and you mentioned you have some trial projects ongoing. And is there any real feedback from those as yet, or in terms of lessons learned and how the process actually works?
Not really any feedback yet. They're really early days. I think what they've got to do is really work to getting a standard pack, a set of data, so understand what the CAFM system needs and what it doesn't need. So we haven't got the output yet, but there's more questions than answers at the moment. But they are working through it.
So Deborah, when we talk about this exchange of information, I suppose we're very much in sort of the BIM level 2 environment, where you've probably got a more generic specification of the building to pass on. Does FM, these building models, do you need, is level 2 useful enough, or do you need to get into
I think
these
I think
levels
we,
to
and
make products?
this is an interesting one. We need to kind of turn it on its head a little bit. What does FM need out of BIM? And that's the question we're asking the BIM for FM group to work on. Because I think we really need to challenge is what data do we actually need in those CAFM systems in the BIM model, and how we're going to keep that BIM model up to date. You know, we don't really want everything in one go, because if we shove that into the CAFM system and give it to the FM, it'll be like scared rabbits in the headlight. They won't know what to do. It'll be so much information. So I think there's a lot about how we present that data. I mean, yes, that data needs to be there, but I think it's a bit like the Google Maps scenario where we want it in layers. So the top level is they want their everyday CAFM data about the asset, where it is, you know, how they...
So therefore it would be very important to find out...
Yeah, but how do they drill down? When they've got an issue, how do they drill down to it? Or they can take their iPod and then say, actually, if I put that iPod up there, I can see through the BIM model that actually there's a layer that, you know, that's the wall, behind that is the pipe, behind that is whatever they're trying to get at. so they can see it in that way. So I think there's a lot of useful ways of doing it. We haven't kind of worked through all those scenarios yet. But I think we really need to understand how FM can use it and turn it back on itself, rather than BIM just piling it all onto them and then they've got to figure out what to do with it.
Certainly one of the advantages of the PPP process is it's sort of real commercial interest, where you have the designers, the constructors and the FM people around the same table,
great.
because they are commercially motivated to work
Absolutely.
together over the long period. And it's very exciting to see the contribution of FM, which I have to say, sort of on the more traditional type of procurement, it's very hard to get those stakeholders around the table at the same time, for the reasons you mentioned, that they're down in the process. And I think this is one of the challenges we have in BIM implementation, is that it starts at the front, and the costs go in at the front. It's the designers and the contractors, but the benefit is is very much often passed down the line. So then the contractor gets the benefits of the 3D modelling design for his cash and efficient work practices, and then the operator, obviously down the road in the longer term, will be getting the benefit of good design, buildings that are well set up and intelligently computerized, etc., for monitoring how they actually are performing performance. So the benefit is passed down. So I think this is a challenge. So how is that benefit sort of shared up the line as well? So I think to motivate sort of the key people to be involved at the right stages. One final question before we perhaps go into the table discussions. Table 7.
Just a question on the early contractor engagement. Just one project we're working on, we've got sort of early FM engagement, but how early should you get the contractor on board?
As early as you possibly can. As early as you can. Bring it forward as far possibly as you can in that stage, in the design stage, because I mean, whoever's managing that building going forward, they need to be part of those decisions. So as early as you can get someone on board, get them on board. You don't need the whole FM contract signed up from the beginning, but if you know that that's going to be operated by an external FM party, get part of that party on board early.
Should be like pre-qualifications, like a questionnaire where you engage the contractors before you go to tender on BIM?
I mean, what is it, private sector or public sector scenario?
Public sector.
Public sector. So yeah, you're going to need to pre-qualify it, definitely.